Hare Krishna. So make sure everybody gets settled back there who doesn't understand English. Okay, there's a few more than 4. Uh-oh. Now it looks like there's about 10. Okay. So thank you again all for coming on this most auspicious day of the appearance of Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda is, of course, Lord Balaram, who is the original guru. So, what are some of the qualities of Lord Nityananda? I'd like to talk about the qualities. We know a lot of stories, and we're going to talk about one particular story, but what are the qualities of Lord Nityananda? Most merciful, powerful, fully kind, fully dedicated to Mahaprabhu. It's his life and soul. He's intoxicated with Krishna Prem. Yes. He's humble in sometimes inconceivable ways. Sometimes even he's an avadut, and he does interesting things like wrestle with crocodiles and steal people's milk from their cows and do things that are inconceivable. Yes? The most significant quality is exhibited in the story of Jagai and Madai. And this is a significant story because, maybe not you, but I am a Jagai and a Madai. So it's a significant story, especially in the age of Kali Yuga. So Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur were instructed by Lord Chaitanya to go out and spread the holy names, to go out and knock on every door and ask the devotees, ask the people, please, you chant this holy name of Lord Krishna. Please, you chant the names of Krishna and tell others about Krishna. Just inviting others. And they were pretty, they were enlivened, and those pious people could immediately receive the message and immediately take the message and start chanting. And then there were people who were not so pious, and they didn't really want to hear the message. So they closed their ears. But Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur were not at all disturbed. They just were so intoxicated, they just kept going and spreading the name. They had this detachment. Sometimes when we go out or when we chant our japa and we don't get immediately results, we become disturbed, depressed, and upset. But Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur were not disturbed. They just kept going, and they just had full confidence that spreading this holy name, they were just going to do it, and whoever took it, and who didn't, they didn't take it. So then Lord Nityananda, being most merciful, he saw these two debauch, Jagai and Madai. And these were really, they used to be Brahmanas. They came from a Brahmin family, but they started taking intoxication, and they would murder, they would set fires. I'm sure they raped women, and they would fight. They would create all kinds of disturbance. And they were quite strong and violent. So most people were very, 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 very scared. And they warned Nityananda and Haridas, don't even bother. These are not pious people. Not only are they envious and impious, they are dangerous, so don't bother. But Lord Nityananda, he knew that this is the age of Kali Yuga. They came, it's the age of Kali Yuga. This is Kali Yuga, and it's only going to get worse. So again, in Kali Yuga, there's going to be so many Jagais and Madais. If we can't share this with the Jagais and Madais, our movement is going to be very small, actually. Only pious people, we only affect pious people, the people who can easily take this. You know, what about all the impious people? What will happen to them? So Nityananda was bold, and he really had full faith and energy that Krishna's mercy, Lord Chaitanya's mercy, should be given to everyone. So he approached the drunkards, and they didn't take it too well, which everybody could have said, "We told you so." And they chased Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, and as part of the pastime, Nityananda and Haridas Thakur ran and ran and ran and ran, and then they disappeared into the house of Shivas Acharya. And at that point, Haridas Thakur, out of breath, was a little frustrated. And he complained to Advaita Acharya, "Oh, this Nityananda is getting us in trouble. We almost got caught by these brothers." And Advaita was laughing, and Nityananda was laughing, because they knew that this was an important pastime, so they were just laughing. So then one night, Lord Nityananda was coming home, and the brothers saw, Jagai and Madai saw Lord Nityananda, and they ran after him, and Madai picked up a broken clay pot and threw it at Lord Nityananda and cut him on the head. He was bleeding. And at that point, something awoke in Jagai, and he kind of realized, wait a minute, maybe this isn't very good. maybe something really bad will happen to us. And he stopped his brother. "Stop! Don't do that! Don't do that!" And when Lord Chaitanya heard about it, which was immediate, he ran with his Sudarshan chakra. He was ready to kill them, right? Chakra, chakra, phew, cut off their heads. Not only are they offending a Vaishnava, they are offending the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram. Unacceptable. And it's interesting because Jagai stopped his brother from hurting Nityananda, and Nityananda stopped his brother from hurting Jagai and Madai. So Nityananda said, wait a second here. We're here to distribute love of God. We're here to give love of Godhead to everyone. That's really what you want, right? And there are going to be a lot of Jagai and Madais in Kali Yuga. So we need to start now. We need to really set a precedent. This is our protocol here. Our standard operating procedures is we give the mercy to everyone. We're not selective here. So Lord Nityananda defeated his brother, defeated Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya called back his chakra. And Jagai fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, begging forgiveness. And Mataji also fell at the feet, but immediately Lord Chaitanya embraced Jagai because he had protected Lord Nityananda. And he embraced Jagai, and Jagai was filled with love of God. And Mataji had that realization he was missing out. He was really missing out. And he wanted the mercy too. But Lord Chaitanya said, no, I will not give you my mercy. So who gave Mataji the mercy? Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda gave the mercy to Mataji and embraced him. And Mataji could barely take it. He broke down in tears. It was actually hard to receive the mercy. He wanted it so much, and it was so hard to receive. He was so remorseful. So he received Lord Nityananda's mercy. So we want to talk about this mercy and the quality of mercy. This mercy of Lord Nityananda, the most munificent incarnation of Krishna ever. Ever. Lord Nityananda forgave the offense of Mataji before Mataji asked for forgiveness. Mataji did not ask for forgiveness, but Lord Nityananda forgave him. And Mataji was very clear. He clearly realized he did not deserve the mercy. He had that realization. So when he received Lord Nityananda's mercy, he could barely take it. He wept tears of remorse. And these tears that flowed from Mataji's eyes washed away his polluted mentality, those tears of remorse, washed away his coverings, the dirt and the dust of intoxication. The tears washed away the suffering and the pain that he was going through by being so covered over. And these tears of remorse washed away his separation from Krishna. Now, although Lord Nityananda forgave Mataji, Mataji still felt some guilt and shame. He still felt that shame. He couldn't really forgive himself. So he was carrying this pain, and he approached the Lord and said, I know you've given me your mercy and your love, but I still have a pain in my heart. Please tell me, what can I do to receive your love fully? How can I receive your love fully? And he was instructed by Lord Nityananda, you dig this, make this bathing ghat. You make this bathing ghat, and you make this place where people can take bath and wash themselves of their external dirt and their internal dirt. You make this bathing ghat. And you serve the devotees. You serve those pilgrims who come there, because Mataji felt, okay, Lord Nityananda forgave me for throwing a pot and hurting him. But what about all the hundreds and thousands of persons who I have offended? What about them? I don't even know how many people I offended because I was intoxicated. I was blinded by anger and rage and lust and greed, and I don't even know who I offended. What about all those people? How will I ever be absolved of the sin of all those offenses I committed to so many living entities? So he made this bathing ghat, and he actually dug it by hand. Shovel by shovel, I guess you shovel like this. Shovel by shovel, he dug out the ghat. And with each shovel, he was praying and crying. I never want to offend another living entity. I don't want to hurt another living entity. It kind of reminds us of the story of Mugurari the hunter. Yes, Mugurari the hunter. He would only half kill animals, and they would suffer and slowly die. It was a very painful process. And his spiritual master, Narada Muni, came and asked him why he did that, and gave him instructions and gave him the mercy. His spiritual master, the spiritual master is most merciful. And then after he gave his mercy, and it was received by Mugurari the hunter, when Narada Muni came back a year later, he saw that Mugurari would not even step on an ant. He could barely. He became so conscious and sensitive to other people's pain. And before, he was just hard. So that's a similar story of receiving mercy. So Mataji dug out this ghat, and he made this ghat. And everyone who came, he begged forgiveness. Please forgive me. I have consciously or unconsciously harmed so many persons, and I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Now, this story is significant in our lives also. For countless lifetimes, we have ignored and avoided service to Krishna. For countless lifetimes, we have been covered over with ignorance and passion. And even in this very lifetime, how many persons have I consciously or unconsciously hurt? How many living entities have I consciously or unconsciously hurt? How many devotees? Even as a devotee, how many devotees have I consciously or unconsciously offended and hurt? So, Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya came to freely give us the holy name the most merciful holy name. They came to freely give their mercy to the most fallen, the Jagais and Madais of this Kali Yuga. It's free, right? Free mercy. What prevents us from receiving that mercy? What prevents us from receiving that mercy? It's a question for all of you. So let's, one at a time, raise your hand. Ego, laziness, attachment, material association, anger, envy, what is that? Bad association, lusty desires. We are covered. We are covered. We are covered by upadhis, mostly our false designations, right? The anarthas, which are part of our false designations. If we didn't have false designations, we wouldn't have anarthas. We have these stories that we're so fallen. So these coverings, one of the biggest covering is, it's the deepest covering we have. It's not our arrogance that prevents us from receiving the mercy. Because certainly Jagai and Madai were arrogant. Jagai was arrogant, and he received the mercy. Madai had a little bit more difficult. It is the guilt and shame that does not allow us to receive the mercy. We feel so fallen. We feel so worthless and useless. It's actually hard to receive the mercy because we're still holding on to the belief that we are too fallen. We are so bad. We don't deserve to receive the mercy. Now, we may not acknowledge that overtly, but I think if you meditate for 30 seconds, what prevents us from receiving the Lord's mercy is we really feel we don't deserve it. I am just really bad. We have not forgiven ourselves. How many of you maybe feel a little bit like that? Just a little. I don't deserve it. There's somewhere in there we actually almost, it's hard to take the mercy because we feel so bad. We have not forgiven ourselves. So the Lord is freely giving it, but we are covered with this upadhi that I am so shameful. I am so useless. I am so fallen, and we identify with it. We're attached to it. It's what keeps us in the material world. I am just so hopeless. So we can't fully receive that mercy. So, how can we forgive ourselves? How can we, because the Lord forgives us. The Lord is forgiving us. He's giving us His mercy. How can we forgive ourselves so that we can receive this mercy of Lord Nityananda? Does anybody have any ideas? Please.
Just like Mataji was serving the Vaishnavas, similarly we can pray to Vaishnavas also.
Serving the Vaishnavas, yes. Let's get more specific. Please? Devotional service. I'm going to get even more specific, okay? Because the more specific we get, the more we're clearly clearing it away. This is, it's not like a vague kind of a thing, like, okay, forgive myself. It's not vague. It's not like, it has to be specific. So when we remember consciously that maybe we've offended someone or hurt someone or we had some upset with someone, usually it's not the guilty or shameful ego that has trouble saying I'm sorry. It's the other covering on top of that, the arrogant covering that pushes down that ability to say I'm sorry. You don't want to say you're sorry. Oh my gosh. You say you're sorry, then you're admitting that you were wrong. And then if I admit that I'm wrong, then I'm more shameful and guilty, and that kind of like fuels that other upadi, that I'm guilty and shameful. So if I say I made a mistake and I'm sorry, then my guilt and shame gets fueled, and I can't take that feeling of pain. So I'm not going to say I'm sorry. And by not saying we're sorry, we actually perpetuate the pain, because somewhere in the back of our mind, when that devotee comes in the room, we have to look the other way. We can't look at them. We can't forget that there's something that's not smooth between us. But we look away. We pretend nothing happened. And we don't say we're sorry. And then we feel still guilty. And we can't forgive ourselves. And then we can't receive the mercy fully. So the specific way that Mataji relieved himself and forgave himself was by asking for forgiveness. It seems like a really hard thing to do sometimes because nobody wants to be wrong. In reality, it's acknowledging that I am a tiny, tiny part of Krishna, and I am a soul struggling in a human machine. This human machine commits mistakes. It has a tendency to be illusioned and covered over. The senses of this machine are imperfect. We make wrong choices. Our mind tells us things that aren't true and we believe it. Our mind judges others. What's the fourth one? Cheating propensity. Who is it that we cheat the most? We cheat ourselves. So we may think I'm good, I'm not a cheater, I'm honest, but we're not honest to ourselves. We cheat ourselves. I'm not going to say I'm sorry to this person because then I'm going to be wrong, they're going to be right, and they're going to laugh at me. And they're going to think, oh, ho, 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 I was right and you were wrong. I'm going to feel stupid. I'm going to feel shameful. And I don't want to feel shameful. It's hard for us to receive love. It's actually hard for us to receive love because we've got this barrier around us. I don't deserve. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Well, I'll tell you something. We can never deserve the love and the mercy of the Lord. And how I mean deserve, we can never earn it. We can never do enough pious activities to obtain it. We can never chant enough Hare Krishnas to win it. It's not a business arrangement here. It's not like if I do this much service or I serve this many devotees, I can ever deserve that love. It's magnanimous. It's inconceivable. It's overwhelming. How can this little tiny soul ever deserve it? We can't. The good news is we don't have to. It's not required. If we're in the mindset that we have to deserve it, that we have to do something to deserve it, we'll not be able to receive it. It is hard to receive love when we believe that we are so fallen and useless and rotten. We all have that belief inside of us. It's a deep upadi. It's the one that prevents Krishna's love from penetrating to the deepest parts of our heart. So, we can practice forgiving ourselves by little, day by day, when we make mistakes, when we use words that are harsher than they needed to be, when we see we have upset another, not just a devotee, but upset someone, even our relatives, whether they are devotees or not. We can give ourselves the biggest gift by saying, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. And when we don't identify the mistake as us, we are not a mistake. Krishna did not make a mistake when he made us. We are not the mistake. But we have habits of making mistakes. So we are different from our mistakes. When we can't admit our mistakes, it's because we think we are the mistake. But when we can admit the mistake that this covered soul committed as an activity, one activity, when we can say, I made a mistake, we are actually separating ourselves from the belief that I am a mistake. I'm not a mistake, but I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I have a habit of speaking harshly. And I want to practice a new habit of asking for forgiveness and starting to practice speaking in another way. We can stop cheating ourselves out of the mercy of the Lord by regularly recognizing the mistakes that we're making, admitting them, and cleaning them up, clearing them up, clearing the air between us and others. And then when there's a little space there, we can clear the air between us and our upadhis. We can clear out those false designations. And little by little, we can relieve ourselves of that burden of guilt which prevents us from receiving the mercy of the Lord. Now, because we feel so shameful, because we have this, we're kind of accustomed to, we're kind of a little accustomed to suffering. If we weren't accustomed to suffering, it would be intolerable to be in this world. And we kind of impose suffering upon us. So we're kind of used to suffering. So love feels a little uncomfortable. It's almost like, I don't deserve this good feeling. I shouldn't feel good. I should feel bad. I shouldn't feel good, and this love feels good, and we push it away. It's hard. We can't push away and receive at the same time. So what helps us to receive the mercy and the love of the Lord, although we are undeserving? It's a gratitude. Jagai and Madai were so grateful. I don't deserve this mercy. I don't deserve this love. But you're giving it freely. I am so grateful. I am so grateful. Thank you. Thank you. And that gratitude has us be able to receive it at least a little bit. And as that love and that mercy and that forgiveness permeates the upadhi that I don't deserve it and I'm so rotten since time immemorial, when it permeates, it starts to break apart that shame. And we start to connect to that loving mercy. And it starts to sink in. And we start to feel it, and then we feel even more grateful. Oh my gosh. Wow. And our eyes open, and our hearts open. Wow. I didn't realize that I could ever feel this. And then we want to catch ourselves making our mistakes even more. We want to keep that integrity in, that it's like, I like this practice of catching my mistakes because then I can immediately do something about it instead of 10 years later. When you wait 10 years, it's a lot harder to say you're sorry. But if it happened and I say, oh my gosh, whoops, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, and I'm not committed to that. Not only is it easier to say we're sorry, it's a lot easier for us to rectify that mistake in that moment. If I make a mistake, well, I have had an experience where I spoke to someone in a certain way. They wanted to borrow the temple van, and I was in charge of the van at that point in time. And at 8 o'clock the next morning, it had an important service that it had to do. I can't remember the service. Maybe it had to pick up some devotees at the airport, something important. And someone wanted to use the van for something else at 8 o'clock at night. Now, between 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning, it's only 12 hours, and then there's sleep. And I have had experiences that devotees aren't always in integrity and returning the key at the right time. And I was in anxiety. So I was getting upset. And I knew that this person did have a track record sometimes of not returning things on time. And so I said, they were arguing with me and kind of begging me. I said, okay, look, if you don't return this key, I will never, ever let you use this van again. If you don't return this key on time, that's it. Never again will I let you use this van. And the devotee said, I was a little activated. I probably said a little harsher than that. If you don't return this key on time, I will never let you use this van again. Okay, it was a little heavier. So this devotee said, you're a Prabhupada disciple. I don't expect you to speak like that. And I was like, okay, because I know my past bad habits, and my habits have been to be intense and harsh. And I have been practicing compassionate communication, but it's not that those energies aren't there and that they don't come out occasionally. So when he said that, I said, you're right. I didn't have to speak to you in that tone. I was really anxious because I have experienced that people don't return things on time. And he said, well, so now I'm held accountable because all of the experience that you've had. I said, well, generally that's how our mind works. So I'm sorry I spoke to you that way. Please do return the key on time. And thank you so much for bringing it to my attention that I was intense, because you gave me the opportunity to come down and clear that away immediately. I could do something in that moment. I could immediately clear it away. We cleared the air. He was satisfied. I was satisfied. And again, I actually thanked him the next day. I said, thank you for immediately speaking your mind so that I could rectify that situation, because you could have held on to that. You could have held on to that, and you could have started telling other people, she's a Prabhupada disciple, and she got so angry. You could have been spreading rumors about me, and a year later, you could have come to me and said, you are so mean and so intense. And I would have said, what did I do? And then you would have said, a year ago, you did this and that, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I wish you would have told me a year ago so you wouldn't have had to feel this way for a whole year. So it's the advantage of really saying we're sorry as soon as possible after we've done something that we know is not in alignment with who we're committed to being. We all have habits. We are not our habits, but our habits get the best of us sometimes. Every time we shine a light and we say, I'm sorry, we forgive ourselves in the moment, and then that big mountain of guilt and shame from unlimited lifetimes doesn't have to get any higher. We can start disassembling that mountain. We can start digging our way out from underneath that mountain of shame by continually asking for forgiveness. It's a powerful tool. And then we can say, I may not deserve your love and your mercy. And I can't. But I need your love and I need your mercy. And I want it. And then we can receive it little by little by little. So this is the most magnificent quality of Lord Nityananda. He forgave before Mataji asked for forgiveness. So when we learn how to ask for forgiveness and we learn to forgive ourselves, we can actually start practicing forgiving others, even when they don't admit their mistake, even when they do not ask for forgiveness, we can forgive them. Forgive them. Lord Jesus said on the cross, forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. Forgive them. And so then we can imbibe the quality of love and mercy and share it with others, and not hold grudges and hold resentments to others who have habits of speaking and acting in ways which are hurtful. We don't want to be hurtful. We don't want to speak hurtfully, but we have long-time habits. We've been practicing since time immemorial how to suffer and make ourselves suffer and cheat ourselves, and how to share that suffering. When we're suffering and we're in pain and we're upset and frustrated, we often share that with others generously because that's what we got in here. But when we start asking for forgiveness and letting that mercy seep in and dissolve that huge mountain of shame, then we have a little mercy. And then that mercy grows, and then we can share that with others. And that is a very wonderful and beautiful joy, to share that mercy of the Lord. Forgiving others, even when they don't ask for it. But first of all, we have to forgive ourselves. We can't give what we don't have. Compassion, self-compassion, compassion for others. That would be the form that the mercy takes place for us. We don't really have mercy, but compassion would be the way that we could be merciful to others. Compassion is really beautiful. It can touch our hearts. And the access to compassion is what? What's the access to the mercy? What? Gratitude. Gratitude. Thank you, Lord, for having this devotee tell me that he didn't expect me to act that way. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to clean this up immediately. Thank you for telling me now and not waiting. However it comes. Thank you for having this devotee yell at me. How many times have I done that to others? That's me. I did that. I did that. Can I forgive this devotee, even if that devotee does not ask for it? Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude helps us to receive the mercy, even though we don't deserve it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lord Nityananda ki! Merciful Lord Nityananda ki! Compassionate, loving, forgiving Lord Nityananda ki! Are there any questions or additions or corrections? You can correct me if I made a mistake. Please. Oh, you're waiting to... You want a mic? Here.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we got 2 mics.
So, thank you very much for such an amazing lecture. So, basically, Mataji, sometimes it happens that I have some wrong notions about myself.
Yeah.
That I am something great, I'm very smart, or something like
Yeah.
that. So, to see that is very difficult to accept. It's
see
very
it as
painful.
Painful, yeah.
And especially when I see some other devotee, he's so good at that, and I'm not so good. So that gives me a great guilt in the heart, and I'm so fallen. So there is a tendency to be artificial, to not to think about that.
Absolutely. There is a tendency to be pretentious, absolutely. It's how we protect. Supposedly we're protecting ourselves, but we're cheating ourselves, yes.
So how...
So we're covered by upadhis. We are covered by upadhis. Now, you know, the upadhis are men, woman, Indian, American. Those are upadhis. But to me, the more subtle upadhis are the ones that really trip us up. You know, I mean, we can get over, okay, you're Indian, I'm American, big deal, not a big deal, not a problem. You have a little different culture, your traditions and habits are a little different, but I can handle that. But the subtle upadhis, so for me, you know, we talk about false ego. So I have a whole seminar on the false ego, but I'll give it to you in a 5-minute. So the false ego is in the material world, right? So in the material world, this is the world of duality, right? So the false ego has 2 sides to the same coin, okay? It's not really one false ego, it's kind of 2 false egos wrapped into one, but it's 2 false egos. So the first one we get when we're really young is something that we're bringing from our last lifetime. We're bringing, our subtle body wakes up when we're very young. We do something, people laugh at us, somebody yells at us, we make a mistake, somebody dies, somebody leaves us, we get confused, we're left alone, something happens, and we wake up to our shame and our guilt from all the past lives, because we haven't resolved it all yet. It's still there, otherwise we wouldn't be here again. So we haven't resolved it. So we wake up to it, right? The subtle body, it comes and we wake up where we left off in our last lifetime. So we wake up as a little child with the shame. So I call it, it's the pained persona, or you could call it egos number 1, emotional guilt operating system. It's just an operating system. It's just a program, just like a computer has software programming. It's a programming. Okay, we are not that programming, but we really identify with it because we don't know who we are. So the pained persona. Now, we don't like that pained persona. It feels really uncomfortable, right? I don't want anybody to know that I'm so shameful or foolish or stupid or unlovable. That doesn't feel good. And somewhere in the soul side, the soul's saying, well, you're not really that. So then our material mind decides, okay, I got to cover this over. I got to hide this. I got to hide it from myself because I can't handle this. It's too painful, right? So we cover it over with being good, being right, being good for our parents, doing the right things, being smart. I'm going to get good grades. I'm going to prove to the world and myself that I'm not so rotten, right? I'm going to prove it. So we go around and we start trying to prove and get that pain relief from the external world, the pain of that pain persona, right? We're trying to grab some juice, some approval, some attention, some acknowledgement, some appreciation, just to relieve that pain inside that we're not showing anybody, we're not even showing ourselves. But then as devotees, we come and we see then it's the other side of the coin. There's this, I'm so fallen. So then the other side of the coin is the emotional, it's the compensating, proving persona, protecting, egos number 2, emotional guilt operating system. I mean, guard operating system. It guards us from the pain. Guards us from the pain. But it has a pain of its own because it says, I'm great. And then as a devotee, you hear yourself saying, oh, I'm so great. Then you think, oh, I'm so arrogant, I'm so fallen. So you go back and forth between these two personas. Have you ever had an argument in your head? I'm so stupid. No, you're not. Back and forth. Have you ever had that argument? It's the two parts of your personas arguing with one another. And it's really a useless argument because we are neither completely fallen and hopeless, nor are we great. We're neither of those. They're both upadhis, both of them. And we're arguing about which one we are, because we don't know who we really are. But we can't know who we are, and we can't paste Krishna consciousness on top of those upadhis. It doesn't stick. But generally, when we come to Krishna consciousness, that's the first thing we do. So we try to cover it over and dovetail those talents in Krishna consciousness. And now I'm not just great, I'm a great devotee. I'm a good devotee. I'm a good devotee. Look how much service I do. Look how many austerities I perform. I feel a little better than that person. At least I'm better than that person. Why do we have to make ourselves feel better than another, be better than another person? Only because we feel so bad inside. If we didn't have that pain, then we don't have to compensate for it. But mostly we don't deal with that pain. We don't deal with that pained persona. It stays buried. I didn't deal with mine until I was 47. We keep it under there, but it's the root. It's kind of the root of the problem. So in allopathic medicine, we treat the symptoms, right? And they keep occurring, and they keep occurring, and we just keep taking the antacid, keep taking it, take the pill, take the painkiller, right? In Ayurvedic medicine, we get to the root, the systemic disease. We get to the root of it. And then the symptoms disappear. We don't have to treat every single symptom. So we want to contend with the stories we made up, that we believed, and we still believe, which really prevent us from receiving the mercy and the absolute truth. We can't stick the absolute truth on top of, I am hopeless, helpless, and fallen, and there's really, I don't deserve this, and I shouldn't have this. I really shouldn't have the mercy of the Lord. I shouldn't have it. I don't deserve it. I'm too bad. We all have that belief kind of somewhere that's holding the mercy at bay. So we want to see when that voice is speaking, and we need to look at that voice. There's a whole process. I have a book which describes some of the things that we can do. But we want to contend with that pain. Now it's interesting because in the material world, we are pleasure seeking and we want to avoid pain, right? Pleasure, pain, right? Duality, good, bad. Duality, right, wrong. Duality. We stay in that world of duality. In the spiritual world, there isn't duality, not because there's no pain, not because there's no pleasure, but because the two are integrated into love. So in love, there is some pain. Tell me, the gopis experience some pain, right? And we say it's their bliss. We say, oh, it's their bliss. But it's painful. They're crying. And we do everything we can in this life to avoid pain. I just want to be blissful, Satchidananda, I want to just be blissful. Now remember, the gopis' pain is their bliss. So we are equating bliss with pleasure. We're not understanding bliss means connection to Krishna. Our bliss is our connection to Krishna, not pleasurable feelings. Not necessarily always comfortable and pleasing to our senses. That's the material world. The highest bliss is connection and loving relation to Krishna, and that may involve some pain. Now, if we can't deal with our own inner pain and contend with it and integrate it, we're not getting ready for the bliss of relationship with Krishna, which may involve some pain. But it's pain in love. So, in this lifetime, to contend with our pain, contend with that painful upadi, which prevents us from receiving the loving mercy of the Lord. That loving mercy touches our heart. And those tears of gratitude, it could seem like there's some pain there. They're not laughing, they're crying. Tears of love. So, it's part of the process of integrating and being grateful for the pain. But if we don't really buy into our pained victim story, then we don't have to prove that we're great. And that fighting of those two personas and that kind of like takes a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of energy to push them down and cover them over. It takes a lot of energy to cover things over and keep them covered. Uh-oh, oops, got to cover that over. Okay, too many people can see that. Okay, now I got to make, oh, it's growing bigger. Now I got to, takes a lot of time and energy. It distracts us from our real purpose. What if we didn't have to cover it over? What if we could reveal it and share it and dissolve it? The upadhis, right? I am so fallen. I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, I don't deserve it, right? Does it have any substance? Does it have any substance? It has no substance. And it's not eternal. It's not real. What gives it its power over us? What gives it its strength and its power over us? What gives it its strength? Tell me. What gives it its power? It's not a living entity. It's not a thing. What gives it its power over us? Say again? My own misidentification. We give it power by believing it. We give it power. We make it the absolute truth. We give it power. What if we didn't give it power? What if we didn't identify with it? Well, the scary thing is we wouldn't know who we are. And that's the scariest thing there is. Oh my gosh. If I don't know who I am, that is scary. That's scarier than death. It's the most scariest thing. That's why we hold on to the ego. Now, we are sat. We do have identity. We are eternal. We have that identity. So, again, it's our soul saying, wait, you have identity. You are real. You have an individuality. But we don't know who we are separate from this upadhi, so we hold on to it. Now, if we put it aside just moment by moment, I'm not saying to completely rip it and burn it, because then you don't have an operating system and you don't know, then you become a vegetable. So if we just put it aside, just one moment at a time, oh my gosh, well, who could I be? What could I do if I wasn't hopeless and helpless? What might I be? What might I practice? What could I practice? What habit could I practice instead of the habit of being fallen and stupid and hopeless? What could I practice? Let me see, I might practice being, maybe I could practice being happy. Maybe I could practice being awake, aware. Maybe I could practice being grateful. We have the 26 qualities, or not more than that. We have all the qualities of Krishna, right? In minute form, right? We have them. They're little muscles. Little muscles. But we haven't exercised them. We've been exercising the other muscles. I'm so fallen, I'm so horrible, I'm so great, I'm so fallen, I'm so great, I'm so fallen. We've been exercising those muscles. What if we exercise other muscles? I'd like to practice compassion today. I'd like to practice integrity today. What if we just, I don't know how to do that. Yeah, that's right. Okay, you don't know how to do that. Great. One of our biggest problems is when we know what to do. When we know what to do, and we know what we should do, and we know what to do, we don't leave any room for Krishna to come in and show us something new. We don't let any room for miracles to happen. When we first become a devotee, how many of you experience lots of miracles when you're first a devotee, right? Oh my gosh, how did Krishna do that? That's amazing. How did that happen, right? And then what happens? Then we start thinking we know, we got the answers, now I know this. And then all of a sudden the miracles disappear, right? Because we're not looking at the world from that perspective that I don't really know. So we're so afraid of that place of I don't know who I am, I don't know what to do. We're so afraid of that place, but it's actually a really awesome place. Okay, Krishna, here I am in front of all these people. I have to give a class for an hour and a half. What should we talk about? I don't know. Please. I don't know. I have a little idea. You need to develop it because I don't know. It's a little scary sometimes, and sometimes I'll sit in front of people and think, okay, now what do I say? Because I don't know. I try not to plan my classes too much because if I plan my classes, then I know, then I become attached to what I'm saying, and I might miss out on something that Krishna wants me to say. But that knowing comes in if we can clear it away. Who would I be if I didn't know what to do? Who could I be? What could I practice? Something brand new. Do you know what the definition of insanity is? Anybody? You can look it up online. It's actually, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting to get a different result. That's insanity, right? It's samsara. We do the same things over and over and over, and we expect, I'm going to change. Oh, I'm changing a little bit. But we're doing the same things. Usually when our personas, like my proving persona is, I'm a recovering workaholic, so I have that ability to work hard. So usually when I'm stressed out, right, instead of doing something new, what do? I'm stressed out. I'm a workaholic. I'm stressed out. So instead of doing something new, what do? Work harder. I work harder because I'm gonna get this done. And then I'm more stressful. And then I create exactly what it is I'm trying to get away from. We do that. We're insane. I mean, in this human machine, we're not really insane. But we're practicing insanity. So we can practice reality, which is, what do I know, Krishna? What do I know? What do I know about Lord Nityananda? Lord Nityananda is so vast, he has so many thousands and millions of pastimes. What do I know? Well, I do know that he's merciful. So let's talk about mercy. And then Lord Nityananda's mercy is, it touches us. It's a different kind of a knowing. It's not a head knowing. It's like, wow. It's transformative. Krishna consciousness is not about information. It's about transformation. Yeah. So, anyway, did I answer your question? I hope so. I can't remember what the question was. But anyway, I hope I answered it. Please. What time is it now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, it's 9:35. I was afraid I was not going to be able to fill up the space. How did that happen? I'm sorry. So what time do we need to finish? Tell me.
It's up to you.
Okay. Let's have a few more questions.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Haribo.
Mataji, could you share the first interaction with the Prabhupada, and how till when you realized that I should finally receive the mercy of Prabhupada, that I am fully surrendered to him?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm fully surrendered yet. I'm practicing surrendering. It's a day-by-day practice. The first time I met Srila Prabhupada was in 1971 through his book. I didn't meet him, but a friend of mine showed me this book. And in fact, I was intoxicated when he showed me the book, because we were in college, so I have performed so many sinful activities. So he showed me this book, and I saw the picture of the universal form, and I said, wow, that's so far out. And I read a few lines, and those lines really shook my world. Wow, this is like, wow, this is the answer. This is what I've been looking for. Where did you get this book? And he told me he got it at the bookstore. He wasn't a devotee. So I went to the bookstore. I had to get a ride there, and I bought 5 copies of the book, and I gave it to everybody in my family for Christmas. I hadn't even read it yet, but I knew that this was the answer. I don't know how I knew that, but anyway. So that's when I first met Prabhupada in 1971, and I carried that book with me, and I would read it, but it was really because we wanted to learn more about Krishna consciousness, and we heard that there was a farming community, and we wanted to live in the country. So we moved to New Vrindavan in 1974 in August. That's when I first met devotees. And then they said, oh, Prabhupada was just here. I had no idea you could meet the author of Bhagavad Gita as it is. I didn't know that he was alive. I didn't know that he had really a movement. I didn't know that. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. So here I am. So then we got initiated in May of 1975. And by that time, Prabhupada had so many disciples that he didn't do all the initiations personally. So some other sannyasi did my initiation, chanted on my beads. But I do have the letter from Prabhupada. He picked the names. So, and then in July, I went to a Rath Yatra, July 1975. Philadelphia Rath Yatra. Philadelphia was near New Vrindavan, about 7 hours away. And I remember that at that time, temples were just houses. We would get houses and then turn them into a temple. Those were our temples. Most of the temples are houses. So I'm not sure why, but I mean, there were so many devotees that came to see Prabhupada. I don't even know where we slept. I can't remember where we slept or what we do. There was just so much activity and so much excitement. But 2 other girls and me were making garlands in the hallway, and there were steps that went upstairs. I think that's where Prabhupada stayed. I don't know if we were doing it in the hallway on purpose to try to see Prabhupada. I don't know, or if there was no room anywhere else because there were so many devotees. But we were in the hallway making garlands for the Rath Yatra cart. And Srila Prabhupada walked by and he said, Haribol. That was exciting. So then, he gave some classes and everything, but he was so far away, it was really hard to hear, and your mind was so busy with all the things that you had to do and how to keep up with the crowd and how not to lose this, and there was a lot going on. It was hard to actually fully assimilate the classes. And then, so I saw Prabhupada the first time then, and then in 1976 he came to New Vrindavan, and he walked in front of us. I remember we all stood, and he walked in front of us, and I remember my first impression of seeing him close up was that, and standing, that he was actually very short, because I'm really short, and most people are way taller than me, so I noticed, wow, he's very small. I thought he was so big. He looks so big, and he speaks so big, but he's actually very short. And he walked, and he would just acknowledge us and bow his head very sweetly, very humbly, and it just touched my heart. And then he gave a class, and after the class, we all got a cookie. I got a cookie in my hand from Prabhupada. And then I went to a woman's darshan, and Prabhupada in that class, he was very caring about the women and told the temple president, make sure that the women ask them once a month what they need, make sure they're getting taken care of. I don't know if he really did that or not, but Prabhupada asked him to do that. And then I went on a morning walk, but on the morning walk, I must have been 200 yards away from Prabhupada because there were so many devotees. So I was talking to the devotee next to me. Nice morning walk, huh? It's like I couldn't feel the connection because there were so many devotees. And then one other thing was we were instructed in 1974 and 75, do not bother Srila Prabhupada. Do not write to Prabhupada. Do not disturb him. He's translating books. Don't bother him. So we were actually encouraged not to have a direct connection with him. And being a woman at that time, there were so many men, sannyasis, temple presidents. I didn't get near him. But I did, when he came to the airport that time, when he came to New Vrindavan, he came to the Pittsburgh airport, and I wanted to make, I used to take honeysuckle flowers and put them in carnations for the deities. And I didn't want to make a garland because I was afraid the honeysuckle would fall out of the carnation, and I wanted Prabhupada to smell the honeysuckle. So I made a little bouquet with flowers and put the honeysuckle in the flowers, and the temple president did give it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, is someone getting married?" So he received my gift, and those were my exchanges. So more my exchanges with Prabhupada are the spiritual master is the most munificent representative of Krishna. He came when he was 70 years old, translated Bhagavad Gita, got it printed by Macmillan. It got in a bookstore in my college town, and I got a copy, not even from a devotee. His mercy is miraculous. How that book touched and changed my life is miraculous. It's the mercy of Guru, Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, and Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, so, two more questions. Is it okay? Are we all, do we have time today? Is it okay? That's okay. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Mataji, for your wonderful realizations and wonderful deep knowledge of forgiveness. And
because I have a lot of deep knowledge of no forgiveness. Forgiveness didn't come into my life till I was 47, so I have a lot of experience of no forgiveness, and I know what that feels like.
You told in the lecture, Mataji, that we should forgive the person who has not asked for forgiveness.
I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you should at all. It can't be another rule and regulation that you put on top of your head and a pressure. I'm saying you could, but you probably wouldn't be able to do that until you first kind of forgive yourself and allow some of that love to touch you and allow compassion and self-compassion into your life. Then maybe there would be a space for you to be able to do that. So I'm not at all saying you should do that, because it's not an artificial thing.
We should forgive ourselves. Then
not should.
This
not
is
should. Again, it's not a should. That's more pressure. That's more like there's something wrong with me. I'm not forgiving myself. There's more reason for you to guilt and shame yourself.
Ideally, we should forgive.
No, not should. Do not even use that word.
Okay.
When I forgive myself, there's an opportunity and a space for me to grow. It's not an artificial imposition. It's a choice. You can't force yourself to forgive yourself. It's not like that. It's more like an opening up. It's more like a deep understanding. It's more like an awareness. It's more like a a receiving. And usually we can't forgive ourselves. I'm sorry, I'm really interrupting your question here. I'm being really pushy. I hope I'm not being harsh. Usually we can't forgive ourselves because we're too busy beating ourselves up. So the first stage would be to stop beating ourselves up. Just that, in and of itself, could feel really, wow, oh my gosh. So, and it's not that you should, but when you stop beating yourself, oh my gosh, you will have a whole new experience of life. Don't beat yourself that you beat it yourself. So really, yeah, no shoulding. Don't should yourself. It's more beating. Should is a beat word. I should forgive others. I'm not forgiving others. Then you beat yourself up and you pile that shame more. I've taken the word should out of my vocabulary. You don't have to, but when you take the word should out of your vocabulary, there's a lot less chance that you're going to beat yourself up. Okay, so now, now you can ask your question. I'm sorry.
My question is, Mataji,
Go ahead.
When Arjuna was asking, Arjuna was telling to Krishna that we should forgive them, they don't know what is right and wrong.
That was Jesus, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Arjuna asked Krishna that we should forgive them. We know what is right and wrong, and they don't know what is right and wrong, and we should not fight. So, how to connect it? How to understand that?
My mind was too busy listening to all the shoulds in that sentence. I couldn't quite get the question. There was a lot of shoulds there. Just notice that you use the word should a lot. So, we want to forgive the Yadavas, Duryodhana. Let's forgive them. Yeah, let's not fight. Let's forgive them. That's what you're saying. Well, good question. Now that we got to the question. What is compassion? Compassion and forgiveness go together. Okay? Compassion is not for the external, because if we have compassion, then we would never confront our pain or arrogance. If we have compassion, we wouldn't do that. So compassion is for the soul. So Duryodhana was causing lots of problems. There was a lot of problems in the world, right? There was an environment of pain and creating more pain for others. If Duryodhana was going to be the leader, there was going to be a lot of suffering and non-compassion. And Krishna, who knows the best, he knows what to do. What do we know? It was time to clear away that impious, unforgiving, uncompassionate nature and leave a space to start Kali Yuga, at least start it with the chance of having loving, compassionate leaders like the Pandavas. And simultaneously, releasing all those on the battlefield and having them liberated from those machines that weren't compassionate. So that's a deeper compassion. So just like Nityananda was avadut, we can't understand exactly from a perspective, our small perspective, and the perspective of duality, why did Krishna tell Arjuna to kill and not forgive? Because compassion and killing in the world of duality are opposed to each other, right? But in the world of reality, sometimes relieving someone and relieving the earth of non-compassionate persons or personalities is the best reality. So does that make sense? Okay. Krishna sees the bigger picture. We're down here, we see the little picture. Okay. Any other questions? I know you have one more. Does anybody else have a question? Let's give somebody a chance and then, okay. You have one back there? What? Any questions back there? Okay, so let this person here speak. He has the mic, and then we'll let that person. Go ahead. Haribol. What's going on?
My question is that if we have that realization that we are like or we are very fallen person, or in that realization it's actually very difficult to forgive ourselves. So there is some contradiction.
Yeah, it's not a realization, it's a covering, actually. We have been in this material world since time immemorial, okay? Fact, okay? We have committed so many sinful activities since time immemorial. Fact, right? Okay. So, those feelings of guilt, maybe I'll use the word, maybe there's another word, remorse. It's a better word. See, Mataji didn't feel guilty, he felt remorseful. So guilt is different than remorse. So the feelings of guilt just keep us stuck. So those two things are fact. When we remorse, my dear Lord, since time immemorial I have forgotten you. I've committed so many sinful activities. I've hurt so many people. I've been covered over. And you're giving your mercy freely to me. Help me to receive it. Help me to work through this. Help me to remorse those activities. Help me to identify them and remorse them and let them go so that I can actually move forward. Guilt holds us hostage. Remorse and tears release us. So, if we believe that we are unforgivable, we're blocking ourselves from forgiveness. We're stuck. And then we have more reasons to beat ourselves up and perpetuate more of the same. If we realize, I have performed sinful activities. Okay, I have performed sinful activities. I am not those sinful activities. My real identity is not sinful. My real identity is part and parcel of Krishna, Satchidananda. I have the qualities of Krishna. That's my real identity. How can I realize that real identity? Well, let me start exercising the muscles, little by little. They're weak right now. They're not very strong. I can't lift 100 pounds of spiritual qualities. Let me start with 1 pound and exercise it. And let me acknowledge I exercised 1 pound. Not like I'm great, but an acknowledgement of it, a receiving that there is hope. I can exercise this muscle. You're giving me that ability. Now let me exercise it. Not just wallow in this mud pie, this mud puddle of guilt and shame. Let me do something. Let me practice something new. And then, hey, that's one activity I don't have to be guilty about. I like that. Let me practice another one. So then we have more activities that we can help us to receive the love, more activities that can help us to feel more connected to who we really are. and less evidence that we are this other thing that's holding us here in this material world. So we have more evidence of reality, this is the reality, and less evidence for this, and so we can, I don't really want to identify with that anymore, because we can feel the joy of identifying with who we really are, and then we can let go of that identity. We have something else more powerful and real and exciting to hold on to. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
There's a question back there, way in the back, way back.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
His question is, what are the symptoms of a person who has received the mercy of Vaishnavas?
What is the symptom of someone who has received the mercy of the Vaishnavas? So the mercy is available. When we receive the mercy, there's a softening, and we kind of travel from our head to our heart. So we have all received a certain aspect of the mercy, and the more so the symptoms are gradually developing. Just like when you have a disease, maybe the symptoms don't come out all at once. So we're at different levels of receiving the mercy. It's not like you go from 0 to 100. So each time you practice forgiveness and compassion, in that moment, you receive the mercy. It's not like you have to wait until you have it totally together and you never, to get the mercy. It's not like that. You receive it little by little, then you integrate it, it nourishes you, and then you've expanded so that you can receive more, and then you integrate it. So we receive it moment by moment. Does that make sense? So don't wait to receive it until you think you're completely fit. Start receiving it today, one moment at a time. Okay. All right? Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your participation. I do have a few copies of my book called Revealing the Heart, The Practice of Compassion, in that white bag, I think. The white one. Yeah. So, oh no, it's not in that bag. It's actually in the other bag. This is the thermos. Yeah, it should be in that bag. Hopefully I brought it. It's here, yeah. So I have a couple copies if anybody wants to get the book. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for your time and your attention. All glories to the most merciful Lord Nityananda. All glories to most merciful Srila Prabhupada. And all glories to all the Vaishnavas. Thank you so much.
Har Grace Shukavaha Mataji ki. So we are very thankful, so much thankful to Mataji that out of so busy schedule from last 5 days, 6 days, Mataji is giving 3 discourses, 3 lectures in a day. And it's such a busy schedule, but you have mercifully taken your precious time to enlighten us. So we are very, very thankful to you. So let's thanks Mataji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Har Grace Shukavaha Mataji ki.
It's actually Lord Nityananda's mercy on me, because when I speak, I have to actually connect. And so it gives me an opportunity to connect with all of you Vaishnavas and get your association. So it actually, I'm receiving also. So thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, Haribol. I only have a couple copies though. Do you want one? Only one? I only have 3 copies. I only brought 3. Uh-oh. Let's see. Maybe we can share. I didn't bring so many copies. If somebody really wants one, maybe I can give it to Prabhu. They're 300 if you want. Yeah. I didn't realize so many people were going to want the copy. You want a copy? Huh? I can ask if you can get a copy. Yeah. Yeah.
Nityananda Prabhu's kripa is coming to you.
Who is coming?
Nityananda Prabhu's kripa is coming to you.
I don't know about that. Haribol? 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 For the time being, until you get a copy of the book, right? Hare Krishna. He wants a copy of the book, so maybe I can give it to Shobharad again. Yeah, and we'll work out. You'll have to. You really want a copy? If you give the money, I can make sure that you get a book. Okay. Okay.
We coordinate with me.
Okay.
Is there some office at home?
There's a couple copies at my house. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to give it to. I could give it to Shobharadika on Tuesday, and she can give it to you. But then he can give you the money. Like that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.